This is Nick with Sunrise Harvest Pheasant Farm, and in this episode I'm going to be discussing how I make brooder boxes for my ringneck pheasants. Alright, so the material I'll be using for the brooder box to build this is plywood, nails, 2.5-inch hinges, safety gate hooks and eyes, chicken wire, and furring strips. These are 1x2 furring strips I'll be using as the outline for the top portion of the brooder box. Tools I'll be using: circular saw, tin snips, hammer, miter box, staple gun, drill, and a tape measure. Alright, so when making a brooder box, I'm fortunate enough to have these boxes I actually get for free. It's just putting them together to make it an actual brooder box. So if you're starting from scratch, which I would probably assume, just to kind of give you an idea of what the outline is here, these boxes are 2x6s or 2x8s, and then they're attached together by other 2x8s for the connections, and then the middle portions there are just for support. You can use plywood, pallets, but this is how the base will start. Alright, here is phase one of preparing the brooder box. None of these strips, furring strips right now, are actually nailed down. I have to adjust accordingly before I start making the rest of the frame of these portions of the brooder box. So this right here, I usually start off with these little pieces. These are the dividing pieces for the divider, so that when I want to keep the birds on one side, but I don't want them to come out over on this side when I'm trying to clean stalls or whatever I may be doing, collecting birds, moving them, just so that birds aren't flying all over the place. Because remember, after 8-9 days old, they start jumping knee high. So I have to adjust accordingly and make things work for me. So I'll put this divider here. These pieces are only 13 inches high. And then on the other side, I usually do it in the middle of the brooder box, and then the piece of plywood, which I'll cut later, will go in the middle for the divider. Now, I have the shovel over here, which I have to, this is why I haven't nailed anything yet. I have to determine everything's not only going to work for the birds, but things that are going to work for me. So when I am separating those birds or cleaning these brooders, I have to make sure my shovel can get in here and I can scrape everything out without it interfering with anything or making it more work for me. Alright, so this is phase one, and then I'll start working on phase two. Alright, phase two is complete. So as you can see, the outline with the newer wood that's on here, they have all been cut. The sections are obviously divided into 4. And then right here, I'll kind of show you how my connections are. I use the miter box to make my connection here. If you decide to do anything like this, I mean, you can do it however you want. This is just how I do it. So my connections are here. And then over here, I didn't use that because it's not necessary for with what I'm going to do, which you'll see more in a moment. And it's just as simple as this. So you just make your joints, and then I'll put a nail here, and then another one going this direction, so it's pretty secure, as you can see here. And this isn't going anywhere. And we're actually going to make it even more secure once we put the chicken wire on here. So as you can see, when I put the hinges up, it'll open like this, but that will be phase 3, and that is next. Alright, phase 3 is complete. As you can see, the chicken wire is now attached to the wood frames. I've attached the hinges. The eye bolt are hooked up, and our divider is cut and set. And then lastly, the heat lamp, which is attached to the rafters, and it's set perfectly in between this section here, and high enough so that the birds can't move it over, and obviously prevent some type of fire. Even if they jump, it still won't hit. But if I have to raise it up a little bit more, then that's what I'll do, and adjust accordingly. And then as you can see too, I put boxes, I cut up boxes on the sides, and I always round off my corners because the pheasants, they like to huddle up in the corners, especially when it's something new like this, and I want to prevent piling from happening. Alright, so this is the end of phase 3, and then our last phase is just putting the birds in there. Alright, everyone is squared away for this brooder. These chicks are 3 weeks of age. There's about 60 of them in here, just to kind of give you an idea. And plus the measurements of this box, it's a little bit over 6 foot long by 4.5 foot wide. So they'll stay in here for about another couple weeks, probably 5 weeks old, and then I'll move them to a bigger stall. I move them gradually because, as you can see over here, this is kind of where I start them off at in a metal box. It retains the heat better, especially in winter months. And then I'll put wood over top to keep that heat inside. Also, to kind of show you the difference in ages, since these are day-olds, grab this little guy here, and you can kind of get an idea of how fast they grow. So, as you can tell, day-old and a 3-week-old, big difference. Now, if I were to put a bunch of day-olds in here, I would put plywood over top to retain the heat. This isn't very unusual for me to do something like that. It would just really depend on how my hatches go and how many birds I have on hand here at the farm. So that's pretty much what I'd have. So I'm going to grab this guy here. I'm going to throw him back with his batch, because this metal container, it's 2 foot by 6 foot, and there are 100 of them in here. So 100 birds in here, and then once they're about 2 weeks, they'll go in a brooder box, and then I'll split the batch in half, so there'll be some in, half of them will be in a brooder box, one, and then the other half will be in another one. And then by the time they're 5 weeks of age to 6, just kind of depending on how they act, then I'll move them to a stall. So these guys get moved quite a bit every few weeks until they're out into the flight pen, which can be anywhere from about 8 weeks, roughly 6 to 8 weeks. And then keep in mind too, at least at this age, the 3-week-olds, you want about 1/4 to half a square foot per bird. So just to give you an idea. They look comfortable. They're relaxing. And there you have it. This is how I build brooder boxes. If you have any questions, feel free to comment at the bottom. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. And then there's still more to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.